The story of King Zulqarnain, trial of power. Is it true that absolute power corrupts? Has the world not witnessed brutal wars and barbaric massacres at the hand of those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted power to govern his people and places? Is there a remedy that can keep the powerful in check and balance? Most importantly, do we have an exemplary role model in history who proved otherwise? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-Aziz, the Most Mighty, sent some remarkable leaders who demonstrated the best and noble life of obedience and humility as slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in spite of being bestowed with authority. A 19-verse long story was revealed in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Kahf. It revolves around King Zulqarnain and his ability to resist the fitna, trial of power. In fact, it portrays the legendary character and competence of this powerful king, who was a true slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who was Zulqarnain? He was a great, powerful and pious ruler. Zulqarnain was his title, which means the two-horn. His kingdom spanned across the world from east to west. What was his greatest service to mankind? The Quranic verses confirm that King Zulqarnain first traveled to the western limit, where he witnessed the sun setting in a muddy spring. Next, he traveled to the furthest east, where he saw the sun rise from the ocean. Finally, he traveled northward to a mountainous region, where he discovered a nation oppressed by the Gog-Magog. Zulqarnain was a just and mighty Muslim king who put a barrier between them and Gog and Magog, savage tribes responsible for killings and devastation. They will appear during the end of times, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will level the barrier between us. Where are Gog and Magog right now? Some scholars are of the viewpoint that they are in the Sea of Galilee, the earth's lowest freshwater lake, and the Dead Sea. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. What was the lesson from this story? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted King Zulqarnain with the best resources at his disposal. He had knowledge, technology, weapons, and manpower. He utilized them in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He neither wasted the resources nor fell into pride. Instead, kept conquering more and more land. Resources are meant to be used to the best of our ability when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them to us. Tawakkul ala Allah, or reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doesn't mean that we sit idle waiting for miracles to happen only. He was also a man of action. King Zulqarnain did not enjoy a royal life inside the palace courtyard. Instead, he set out to inspect the matters of his subjects and conquer new lands, bringing order, solution, and justice to them. He opted for a hard life over an easy, useless one. King Zulqarnain was tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with immense power. He was offered the chance to treat his subjects any way he wanted. Being a guided leader, he promised to punish the ones who committed zulm, shirk and first-sword, and confirmed the concept of akhirah by stating that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would punish them further after death. Similarly, he promised to be compassionate with the people who were obedient and hoped that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also reward them in the hereafter. He kept marching forward after each victory. There was no concept of a vacation or taking a break. He pursued his vision of establishing justice and order in Allah's subhanahu wa ta'ala world with all his might. As he reached a remote and undiscovered land between two mountains, he met with a people whose language was unknown. Since he was committed to solve their problem, he broke through the communication barrier. They realized the ability and strength of King Zulqarnain and narrated their plea of devastation. at the hands of the beastly Gog Magog. In return, they were ready to pay King Zulqarnain heavy taxes for protection from the invading tribe. King Zulqarnain was an intelligent and content king. He informed the people that he did not need their wealth, as what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted him was of higher value. However, they could provide manpower to enable him to seal the partings that allowed access to the enemy into their lands. Hence, he was creating synergy by merging resources and also not usurping the wealth of desperate and weak people. The manner in which King Zulqarnain built this barrier under his personal supervision signifies an advanced architectural marvel of its times. He ordered huge iron sheets to raise a humongous iron wall. Next, fire was ignited, and the iron wall turned red hot. Molten copper was poured over the wall to form a solid structure after it cooled down. A wall that could neither be scaled nor penetrated. The climax of the story comes when the mega project is completed. This king, instead of taking all the credit and boasting about it, simply attributes it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He states about the Great Wall, "This is a mercy from my Lord, but when the promise of my Lord comes, he will make it leveled, and ever is the promise of my Lord true." King Zulqarnain never lost his faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He remembered the reality when he could have easily been swayed by his success. The king knew who had granted him the power, position, and resources. He acknowledged that the world was temporary, and that one day this mighty wall shall perish by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala order. What was given to him in the world was only by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mercy. King Zulqarnain's story holds invaluable lessons for leaders of today to earn success in the world and after they are gone.